My name is William Michael. I'm the headmaster of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, and your family, like mine, is probably getting ready for a new school year starting in September or maybe in mid to late August. And while you're still maybe working out details of curriculum plans and goals for the coming school year, I'd like to take some time to discuss modern K-12 requirements, or the requirements of a modern K-12 school program, and talk about how, as Catholic families, we might satisfy these requirements without letting them hijack our children's education and become a distraction to the real studies that we'd like to pass on to our children while we have the opportunity to do so during their educational years. When we look at the modern K-12 school model, the model of the public school system, which has been adopted by Catholic schools and most other private schools, and also by homeschools, we have some problems that need to be talked about. And I say here in this first point that the K-12 curriculum, and I'm going to explain this in some detail, the K-12 curriculum is not appropriate for homeschool students. K-12 curriculum is designed for schools, for formal schools where kids attend for a certain number of days per year. The modern school calendar covers only 180 days per year. And the K-12 curriculum is designed to lead all students through a minimal course of study over the years of their childhood or their years as a minor before they turn 18. The K-12 curriculum was never intended for private study or private instruction. It was never intended or designed for Christian education. It's a secular public school model that was intended to provide the average student off the street with a basic education that allowed him or her to participate well in modern American society. And there were two concerns of that K-12 curriculum. First of all, because we live in a democratic society and every citizen has a responsibility to participate in the democratic process, there was a necessary body of knowledge that needed to be taught to students so they could do so intelligently. The history of our country, the principles of the Constitution, the democratic process, how our country works, things like that need to be taught. Also, issues of diversity and compromise, how we can live in a democratic society where controversial issues are settled by elections, and people who disagree on things can agree to disagree and allow elections to settle controversial issues. That's a challenging idea, and that needs to be taught and learned through schooling. So training children to be able to participate in a democratic society was one of the goals of the public school curriculum. The other was to prepare students for participation in a modern capitalistic workplace or market. If we look at the time when the public schools were organized, it was the late 1850s and early 1900s, and industrialization was in progress. And so people like my grandparents were moving from farms in America. I've shared statistics in the past that showed that almost 90% of people in America lived on farms in the 1800s. And that radically changed in the late 1800s and early 1900s. My grandparents, for example, were farmers in West Virginia, and in the early 1900s they moved to New Jersey for factory work as industrialization created jobs. And then later in the 1950s, as suburbs were built after the wars and created this whole suburban model of life that became so normal for so many people. The public school system was designed to prepare students to participate in that culture, in that market, in that economy. And so it's limited historically, because today the market's radically changing. Really, ever since the dawn of the internet in the 1990s, that whole system, that whole industrialized system has come into question. And now, with the internet and with shipping and with the ability to work from home so conveniently, all of the principles of that industrial society are now called into question. And we have to ask whether or not the public schools and the K-12 model does, in fact, serve students living in the 21st century, where so much has changed. I would make the argument, even though I'm a strong supporter of private schooling, I worked in private schools as a teacher and administrator for over 20 years. Even though I'm a supporter of private schooling, I personally believe that brick and mortar schools are obsolete today, that the internet has made them unnecessary. And the sooner Christian families learn that, the better. Because if we understand the tools available to us, if we understand the resources and opportunities available to us and learn how to make efficient use of them, our children will really benefit and enjoy all of the fruits of these developments rather than be educated following a model that was designed for a different age, which really no longer is necessary. So for a couple of different reasons, those are two reasons, the K-12 curriculum is not appropriate for homeschool students, especially in the 21st century. It's simply not appropriate. A third reason that I would give for that is that, as I said, when the public schools were developed, they were developed in the mid-1800s through the early 1900s. As I said, most Americans lived in an agricultural economy. They lived on farms, worked on farms, and the schedule, the academic calendar, everything about the school system was designed to serve that culture. The economy was still agricultural. That's why the school would meet during months when there wasn't a lot of work to do on the farm, when the families could afford to have the kids away from the farm. They weren't needed for planting or harvesting and things like that. That school calendar no longer has any relation to our modern lives. We're not farming, we're not living in an agricultural economy. Few of us are growing our own food. I actually do live on a farm, but it's more of a, it's not necessary. We don't live from the farm. We grow our own food and do our own things just as a sort of a cultural preference. We're not dependent on it. And the school calendar really has nothing to do with our modern lives. And so that's another reason. The fourth reason that I'd give is that because the time available for schooling in an agricultural society was so little, they could only have, let's say, 180 days of school per year. We use less than half of the year for formal schooling. And there's simply no reason why we're doing that in 2021. It makes no sense why we'd be organizing our children's education around an agricultural calendar that allows for only 180 days of study. So I could go on giving more and more reasons, but I'd like to make it very clear that the K-12 curriculum in modern schools is not appropriate for homeschooling. In a homeschool, we're free to study and learn and talk every single day, all day, every day. And we don't want to have this mindset where there are school days and not school days, school hours and not school hours. Every hour of every day is an opportunity to teach and demonstrate and model and explain and discuss. And that's the real benefit of homeschooling. The children are with their teachers all the time. Through modern technology like video tutoring and things like that, students have access to their teachers year-round, day and night, things that were never possible in the past. And we need to make use of these tools because we have a lot of work to do in Christian education. But this modern curriculum is not appropriate for homeschool students, and homeschool students need to do much more than modern school students are capable of doing. So My first argument is that the modern K-12 curriculum is not appropriate for homeschool students. Secondly, what is required by this modern K-12 program is very easily fulfilled, and what I wrote here, very easily fulfilled by pleasant means. Very easily fulfilled by pleasant means. In other words, we don't have to maintain a strict formal school schedule to satisfy the K-12 requirements because they're very minimal. They're very, very minimal, very easy to satisfy, and we can't allow them to take up our focus in our homeschool curriculum. There's easy ways to get these things done without allowing them to hijack our homeschool. And I'd like to give you an example. In my family, we have 10 children. My oldest is 21. My youngest is currently 6. So right now we've got 3 adult children who've moved on to their career pursuits and college studies. And we've got 7 children studying at home from ages 17 down to 6. What we do in our family is we focus throughout the year, and I'm going to talk about this in the next point, we focus on their Catholic education. That's our focus in our homeschool. We're not concerned with K-12 studies. We're not concerned with career plans or vocations in our homeschooling years. We're focused on their Catholic education, and I'll explain why a little bit later. But what we do is, as far as the grade level requirements are concerned, we do want to prove, we want to easily demonstrate that we're satisfying all of those requirements, both for our kids' sake, so they have a sense and know that they're accomplishing all the things that the schools are doing, but also if anyone ever inquires, we can demonstrate that we're all at or above grade level. But we don't allow those K-12 studies to interfere with our daily homeschool activities. And what we do is we use some resources that allow the kids to satisfy all of those modern requirements in a pleasant way. They consider it almost like some fun activity books. There's a series of books that I'll show you here. These books are published by Harcourt Family Learning. It's a series of grade level books, and you can see this is a pretty thick book. And the binder says complete curriculum, and it shows you the grade level, grade 4 complete curriculum. These workbooks are just big fat activity books that cover all subjects, and really you can hand this to the kids and let them work on it over the summer or in the evenings or just any time that they have free time. And they can work through these activity books, read these lessons, complete the activities, and cover just about every concept and skill at that grade level. And they have these for all of the elementary grades, and something like this is really all you need to satisfy these modern K-12 requirements in a pleasant way, a way that the kids enjoy. Now, when you see this book, you realize how ridiculous is it if the grade 4 curriculum can be contained in a single book like this. How ridiculous is it for any parent to say, we're going to devote our whole homeschool to getting this content done over the course of an entire school year? The content of this book, as I said, this could easily be done over the summer. This could easily be done in a couple of weeks if the students are helped through it. So when you see, this is a publishing company that understands that you can wrap up everything in 4th grade in a single book. And when we see that, we should realize that devoting a whole year of homeschooling to covering the content of this book is pretty ridiculous when it can be broken down into activities that kids can almost do entirely on their own. So I would say this K-12 curriculum is not appropriate for Catholic homeschool students. There are pleasant means by which these requirements can be fulfilled. And just to show you, this is the 4th grade book, and I'll just give you a quick peek at these others. Here's 3rd grade, and then we have 5th grade and 1st grade. So each of my kids in elementary grade levels are just working through these this complete curriculum series of books. They've been doing that over the summer in their spare time. And that'll be it for us in terms of grade level studies. Once September rolls around and we're back into the normal routine, we're not talking about grade level studies anymore. We're focused on our real Catholic education with all of our effort and energy and resources in Catholic homeschooling. So, having said that, we can fulfill these modern requirements easily by pleasant means. And then lastly, with all of our energy, with all of our time and resources, we really should be focused throughout the school year on Catholic education. And of course, I would recommend a classical Catholic education. When we talk about high school studies, they can be pursued in the same way as I've showed you. It's very simple. There's not a lot of material covered in a high school curriculum, certainly not enough to justify devoting a whole homeschool to covering that material. And when we do so, we neglect more important studies. And this is something that Catholics have been warned about by popes in the past. Pope Pius X warned that Catholics have to make sure that they don't allow sacred subjects like theology to be bumped out of the curriculum by modern math and natural sciences, and that's often what happens. We, as parents, we're responsible for the evangelization of our children. There are many different ways for them to satisfy modern requirements like math and science. One way I recommend is when they've finished their high school studies to take a year and study in a community college and just satisfy all of those modern requirements and then transfer into the college or university of their choice. There are many different ways to satisfy these modern issues, but there are not many different ways to provide our children with the best possible classical Catholic education during the only years where they're in our control as children, and we have the opportunity to evangelize them and prepare them for the adult decisions that they're going to need to be making once they hit age 18. So, my advice, and again, as I've said, I have over 20 years of experience, full-time experience working as a private school teacher, as a private school administrator, as a homeschool father, as a homeschool publisher, as a classical tutor, on and on. My advice is that homeschool parents not allow K-12 requirements to become the focus of their homeschool. I like to say to hijack their homeschool, but to find simple ways to get those things done and stay focused on the real challenge of classical Catholic studies. If you'd like to ask questions about this or get into it in more detail, I ask that you visit us at classicalliberalarts.com. I'm available on live chat all the time. I publish talks that you can find on YouTube if you search for my name, William C. Michael. They're called Walk Talks because I record talks to answer questions that I receive while I'm out on a daily walk. So you can look up William C. Michael or Walk Talks on YouTube and find those videos. There are articles on the Classical Liberal Arts Academy website, but most importantly, you can just contact me directly using the live chat on the website or by email at mail@classicalliberalarts.com. So I hope that's a helpful set of suggestions for how you can consider satisfying K-12 requirements and not allow them to hijack your Catholic homeschool. I hope that's helpful. God bless your studies.